Hi guys, so I thought we make today a little bit of a quick comparison between all of the different stuffs. In my last stream, everyone was asking me, how good is the new Grayeye stuff? Should I go for it? Is it better than the Daigon stuff? Is it better than the Foci stuff? What is the best stuff in PvE and what is the best stuff in PvP? Let's find out. Most people are currently comparing those four stuffs with each other. We have the Daigon stuff, we have the Abyssal stuff, then we have the Grayeye stuff, and we have the Bellandir stuff. So what we will be doing here, we will be going through all of the different stats and the impact it actually has for you as a stuff player. Let's start first of all with the min and the max damage. So what we can see here is that the Daigon, the Grayeye, and the Queen Bellandir have all the same min and max damage values. Only the Foci staff has a little bit of a higher min damage, but a little bit of a lower max damage. We don't say it's bad right now or whatsoever, we just take it as it is and we will continue comparing stuff. But we have to keep in mind our Foci staff has a little bit of a lower max damage value. Next we come to attack speed. And now things getting really interesting. Because what we can see is that the Daigon and the Foci staff both have 0.7 seconds base attack speed. But the Grayeye staff and the Bellandir have 0.74 seconds attack speed. But what we are getting here on the Grayeye staff is 10.5% additional attack speed. So what is attack speed doing? Attack speed increases the amount of auto attacks you hit and it reduces the animation time of your abilities. So a lot of people would think now, okay, then my Grayeye staff is the one where I hit the most attacks and my animation times will be way shorter than, for example, at the Foci or the Daigon. And what if I tell you that the Daigon and the Foci staff in most cases have still a higher attack speed, even though you're getting 10.5 additional attack speed. And this is just simply because base attack speed is just super important. And a lot of people don't understand this. That's why I want to give you a quick example on this. Okay, so we have a random build here with Daigon stuff. Now, which is important now is that you understand what is the attack speed value that you have to look at. And this is exactly this attack speed value, okay? So this in the end determines how fast your animations are, how fast your attacks are. If we go in-game, you can see that also this is this value, 0.41 seconds. This determines how many auto attacks you do and how fast you do your animations. Only this value. Now, if we go back 0.43 seconds, right? The lower this value is, the faster our attacks will be. Now we have here 0.43 seconds. Now we change that to the Grayeye stuff, right? Look at this. Boom. It goes up. We're losing attack speed by using the Grayeye stuff. And now you might think, what the hell? We're getting more attack speed, right? If we go back, we're getting more attack speed. Why are we losing overall attack speed? It's simple, because the base attack speed of a weapon is super important. Okay, let me just quickly show you how this works in game. Okay, so we have our total attack speed, the 0.41 seconds. Now, what is influencing this attack speed? First of all, base attack speed, okay? Our weapon has a base attack speed, which is influencing our overall attack speed. Then we have dexterity. All of our dexterity is influencing our total attack speed. And then in the end, we have also our percentage attack speed, which is also influencing our total attack speed. So how does it work now? We get our total attack speed. If we take our base attack speed, we subtract a flat reduction from our dexterity. The more dex we have, the more we reduce our base attack speed. And afterwards, we multiply this with a percentage attack speed factor. Okay, so we take our percentage attack speed and we reduce then the overall attack speed at the end. But important, this one here has diminishing returns. So your 10% in the end won't reduce this value here by 10%. So that means if we have, for example, now the Grayeye stuff, we would increase these 44% to 54%, right? But this would not reduce our bases here by 10% more. It would be less because we have diminishing returns. The more you have from a stat, the less value you get. So that's why this base attack speed is just super critical and important. Because if our bases is already 10% lower, right? Then we have to increase that by a huge margin to actually get to the same value here, right? That's the point. A lot of people don't look at this, and this is fine. But if attack speed is super valuable for you, you should look onto the base attack speed of a weapon. Okay, so we talked about attack speed. Now let's talk about range. Range also super important, of course. We see the Daigon and the Foci staff at 17.6 meters and the Grayeye and the Bellandir at 19.2 meters. The basis is again super important because, well, this is now only 1.6 meter difference, right? But if you have in your gear a percentage range increase, then it always takes this value as a basis. So for example, 50% of 19.2 is more than 50% of 17.6 meters. This is just something you have to keep in mind. It's just way easier to get to 30 meters maximum range if you have high base range weapons. But one thing that I would always consider is your secondary weapon. So for example, let's say you play the staff plus a bow. Okay, so it would feel so awkward if your staff would be at 30 meter range, but your bow would be only on 26 meters range, right? So that would feel just awkward to play. If you want to do, I don't know, a strafing, and then you have to get really, really close, but then you can do your fireball from, I don't know, 30 meters, it just feels awkward. And it's just something you need to consider. For example, for the bow, I think the only bow that has also over 19 meters range is the Delulu bow, right? The Delulu bow, which is an arc boss weapon. You don't have the problem, for example, as a spellblade, where you have a dagger in your secondary hand and you anyways just use your staff abilities from range. So here just having more range is just really, really beneficial. Okay, that's it for range. Now let's come to the stat points. So we see we have just dexterity and wisdom for all of our staffs. Now it's just important like the total amount of stat points you are getting per weapon, right? So we have 13, 12, then we have 20 for the Foci and 21 for the Daigon. Base stats are just general super important always, because base stats give us first of all access to all of our thresholds, right? So maybe you want 50 strength, maybe you want 60 perception or whatsoever. Stat points are just super important, but additionally they give base damage. So for example, if we look here onto the Foci compared to the Grayeye, we can see we have 8 base stats difference, right? So 8 wisdom or dexterity give us already 16 max damage. So what does that mean? Just through the base stats already evens out the max damage difference we had here between the Grayeye and the Foci. But the additional dexterity also gives you more crit chance and also more attack speed. Okay, so it has even more advantages than just giving you more base damage. But here, of course, the clear winner is, of course, our Daigon stuff, which gives us the most base stats. Now let's come to the next stat, which is, in our case here, critical hits. The Daigon is getting crit and the Queen Bellandir is getting crit. And here we have to differentiate between PvE and PvP. Because for PvE, you don't want to have more than 1.5k crit. Because 1.5k crit gives you around 60% crit chance. Now, let's say you come to 1.7k crit, right? 1.7k crit gives you 62% crit chance. 200 critical hit chance only give you 2% more crit. So when I do my PvE builds, I always try to get only to 1.3k crit. Because most of the time you have a deadly marker in your team, or you have a crossbow player who also increases your crit chance, and then you always get to easily 1.5k crit, right? So there is no need to go higher than 1.3k crit. But the problem is, often you automatically get higher. And that's why I think having this additional crit is just wasted stats. It's just simply a wasted stat. It's not good. It doesn't give you any benefit. It will increase your crit chance maybe by 1 or 2%, which is nothing. So, but for PvP on the other side, you have to overcome the enemy endurance, especially if you want to hit a tank or you want to hit a healer. You need to get over the enemy endurance, and this is not always so easy. So that's why you need to build a lot of crit, and that's why these are just really, really good. Now let's come to the next stat, which is cooldown speed. We're getting 9% through the Foci staff and 9.6% on the Grayeye staff. Cooldown speed is of course always good in PvE and also in PvP. Okay, and then about attack speed we already talked. So we discussed all of the different stats that we have here. Now let's have a look on the effects. So first of all, we can see on the Daigon, we increase our burning damage and we increase our fire skill damage. So what does that mean? So we go to our staff abilities here, we increase the damage of our serial fire bombs, we increase the damage of Inferno Wave, Fireball Barrage, and from our Meteor Shower. Okay, so these 4 abilities, we increase our damage. And of course the burning effect, which we apply through these abilities. Okay, let's come to the Foci stuff. So here we change our Ice Spear to a lightning ability. Okay, now this ability is not decreasing the movement speed anymore. Now it lets explode burning stacks and can then even spread the damage if the enemy is wet or frosted. I tested this a lot, but yeah, I think this lightning spear is just completely trash. I'm not sure, maybe someone has a good use for that, but I think the damage is just way too low, and in most cases it's not really good. But instead of that, we have to look onto one stat which we didn't saw on the table before, and this is species damage boost. So 64 is, depending on how much species damage you already have, a 5 to 6% damage boost. But not only for your staff abilities, for all your abilities. That means also for your wand abilities or for your bow abilities or whatsoever. Okay, now let's come to the Grayeye stuff. So here we are increasing the damage of all of our Thunderstorm skills and reducing the mana cost of those. So from what I know, Thunderstorm skills are just all the lightning abilities. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. If we go now back to our abilities, we can see our 2 main lightning abilities are Chain Lightning and Judgment Lightning. Of course, super important spells which we use constantly. It doesn't matter what kind of build we do, if it's a PvE build, a PvP build, if you're a staff dagger or if you're a bow staff. I think you most of the time have these 2 abilities in your kit. And then we have the Banner Staff, where we every time we apply a burning stack on the target, we have a chance for an explosion, which deals a lot of additional fire damage. So we apply burning through 3 fire bombs, or we convert our frost smoke screen to our burning smoke screen, which would also apply all of the burning effects. And then we could just proc all those burnings on our enemies and they would explode all the time. Okay, so the last thing we haven't talked about are the traits. So most of the traits are always the same in the different weapons. So let's quickly highlight what is important here to understand. For the Queen Bala, we get the additional attack speed, which is really important because, as mentioned before, it has a low base attack speed. So it's pretty good that we get some additional attack speed through the trait. Then of course we get mana cost efficiency on the Grayeye, which is pretty nice, and the Daigon and the Foci is getting additional buff duration. So these are the major differences when it comes to traits here. Okay, now we talked about all of the different things. What is different, what is good, what is bad. We understood how it works. Now the question is, what is best for PvE and what is best for PvP? And let's start first with PvE. There's for me a clear winner, and this is the Foci stuff. First of all, it has really good base attack speed. The range doesn't matter. It gets a lot of base stats, which is also really, really important. And it's also the right base stats. So you're getting dexterity and you're getting wisdom, which is super crucial. And compared, for example, to the Daigon, we are getting cooldown speed, which is way better than critical hit chance, right? Since the deadly marker nerf, getting a lot of cooldown speed is super crucial. And the crit chance, as mentioned already, is not that important in PvE. And then additionally, on the Daigon, for example, we get 5% more burning damage. Here we get 5% more lightning damage. But here, what do we get? Just 5% more overall damage. This is of course way better. It's also impacting our secondary weapon. That just combined with the cooldown speed, the high base stats, the good attack speed, is just overall the best weapon, even though we are a little bit lower here on the max damage value. Now we have our PvE stuff. Now let's come to our PvP stuff. And here again, we have a clear winner when it comes to large scale PvP, and this is the Queen Bala stuff. For large scale PvP, Queen Bala stuff is just by far the best. Overall, it has pretty solid stats. Of course, it has a little bit of a lower base attack speed, but it compensates that with the attack speed trait here on the weapon. And of course, it has a little bit of lower base stats here compared, for example, to the Daigon stuff. But the effect of this weapon is just so incredibly good that, for me at least, the Daigon stuff just always wins out on that. Of course, if you don't have access to a Bala staff, then the question is, what should you go for PvP? Should you go for Daigon or should you go for the Grayeye staff. And here it of course depends a little bit on your playstyle. First of all, keep in mind that these attack speed will be more or less compensated by the lower base attack speed that the weapon has. And then of course we are losing the base stats here from the weapon, and we are trading critical hit chance for cooldown speed. Okay, so this is the first thing you need to understand. We're trading cooldown speed for critical hit chance. Now the question is, what is for your build more important? Is it more important for you to have more crits? Do you want to be a tank killer or a healer killer? So maybe you need 2.5k crit or so. Getting a weapon with more crit is of course crucial for that, because otherwise it's getting just really hard to get to those high crit values. If this is not the plan for you, then maybe 1.3k, 1.5k crit is already enough. And maybe then the cooldown speed just comes more in handy. And then you have to ask yourself again, what is more important? Are the fire spells more important or the lightning abilities more important? So for me as a player, I would always prefer the Daigon over the Grayeye, especially in combination that I'm losing stats, which loses me around 20 max damage, which is of course not nice, which will make it harder for me to reach certain thresholds. I would always go for the Daigon stuff, but I can see a world where someone says, I don't need the additional crit chance, and I just do most of my damage with my lightning abilities, and I want to amplify my lightning abilities even more. Then I can maybe see that could be a good reason to go for the Grayeye stuff. So if I could choose between all of those weapons, then I would go for PvE for the Foci one, for large scale PvP I would go for Queen Bella, and for all form of smaller scale PvP I would go for the Daigon. And if I don't have the ability for large scale PvP for the Bella, I would also go for Daigon. So I would say that the Grayeye staff is personally not that good, and I wouldn't recommend that for any of the builds. Okay, that was it. I hope that was helpful and you could learn something. If you like the content or you want me to compare some other weapons, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching guys, and see ya in the next one.